What is up, Attack Wing fans? The Iron Okie coming at you with my very first Star Trek Attack Wing video. Today I'm doing a breakdown of a fleet that I have been flying in this month's Faction Pure League on the Star Trek Attack Wing Tabletop Simulator group. This is my Romulan faction fleet. The month is almost done. I've actually already won first place with this fleet. I've defeated all of the other faction pure fleets out there. And I thought that this would be a great place for me to start making attack wing videos because this fleet was so successful. I thought it'd be worth sharing with all of you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I've got a 3-ship build here. The build is a Scimitar, a generic Riemann Warbird, and the Jirok Scout Vessel with the Romulans. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about the ships themselves. There's other people that do a better job of breaking down the ships. I'm just going to walk you through the builds and talk you through the methodology of why I've done what I've done. So first, let's start with the Scout Vessel. I'm starting here because this is the glue that really makes this fleet something special. You can put a Riemann Warbird or a Scimitar on the table, and it's going to do well pretty much no matter what you put on it. They're just really, really good ships. But if you can add something like this to it that really ups the potency of those ships, that's when you get a fleet like this that just absolutely dominates on the table. So the Jirok Scout Vessel, really, I don't use the ship ability a bunch. Every other turn, I get to give a free action to one of my other warbirds, which is great. I don't always make the best use of that, but it's nice to have when you need it. The key here is the Romulan flagship. We are allowed to use one resource in this league, and the flagship is the resource that I choose. So the flagship says that when attacking, all other friendly Romulan ships within range 1 to 2 of your flagship may choose any number of their attack die and re-roll them. So that means that my Riemann Warbird and my Scimitar both get a free target lock reroll every single attack. When you combine that with their significantly big primary weapon attacks, that is a tremendous, tremendous ability to have. And having target lock every turn just makes those ships just about broken. Combine that with captain of the scout vessel / flagship is Dinatra. All other friendly ships within range 1 of your ship get an attack die. So now that 6 dice primary weapon is a 7 dice primary weapon attack, as long as I keep it within range 1 of my flagship here. Because I want the flagship to still have a little bit of bite itself, I've included the time token disruptor beams. These are the disruptor beams that place 3 time tokens, and for each hit or crit, I can roll an extra die and do extra damage to my opponent. So every other turn, because I'm using the Romulan Bridge Officer, I only have to place 2 time tokens. So every other turn, I get a 5 dice attack out of this little bitty scout vessel. So it has some teeth too, and you'd be surprised that extra damage actually makes a pretty big difference in finishing off ships more often than not. So really, really impressive. Nullifier Core is in here to give me free re-rolls on a defense dice. The scout vessel is incredibly fragile. I'll move the thing. Let's see. So as you can see, 2 shield, 2 hull on the scout vessel. 2 hull is incredibly fragile. When you cloak, your shields disable, and that means 2 hits kills the ship. Good news is that the scout vessel has a agility of 3. Flagship adds an agility to that, so its agility is 4. And then when you cloak it, you get another 4 defense dice. So I roll 8 defense dice when this ship is cloaked, and the Nullifier Core gives me a reroll on a blank. So the ship is hard to hit. It can be killed. It is a bit vulnerable. But we'll talk through some of the things that I do to protect it here in just a minute. One other thing to point out, because the flagship gives me the sensor echo ability, and the Jirok Scout Vessel already has sensor echo, that means I get a free sensor echo every single turn. So that further helps me make this ship survivable and keep out of enemy firing arcs. Scimitar will do next. It's a pretty basic build. Scimitar with Captain Salatrell. And Salatrell, because I'm playing in a faction pure league, at the beginning of the setup, I name a faction, and as long as I have an opponent of that faction in my forward firing arc, her captain skill becomes 10 for the combat phase. So she, in a faction pure league, she's a great captain. She's almost always attacking with a captain skill of 10, so she gets to shoot first, which is a great ability for the scimitar. Um, I have the Romulan helmsman. The only red maneuver on the scimitar's card is that 4 come about. This is a fleet, you fly right at them, you shoot at them, you turn around, you do it again, so you will be doing come-abouts with this fleet, generally 1 come-about a game before they're totally dead. But it's nice to be able to have that Romulan helmsman to do the come-about, disable the helmsman rather than take the ox, so I still get whatever action I want to take on that turn. Really, really tough, really, really good crew to have on the Warbird. And the last thing I will say, component that's pretty critical, is the interface generator. At a 3 cost on a ship like the Scimitar or a generic Riemann Warbird, the interface generator is a broken card. It is undercosted and overperforming. It takes a ship like the Scimitar that is very difficult to destroy and makes it insanely difficult to destroy. It's wonderful to be able to survive that alpha strike that your opponent's planning and only take 1 damage. The hull value on the Riemann Warbird and the Scimitar is 7. 1 damage to the hull is no big deal. The interface generator is an absolutely nasty card in this fleet, and it makes these ships very hard to get off the board. I did add charging weapons to each one of these ships. When I did that, I didn't realize that I couldn't re-roll dice multiple times. I've only been playing for about 2 months. Easy mistake to make, but that ends up being a waste of 2 points in this fleet because the flagship already gives me the re-rolls. I don't need the re-rolls from charging weapons. So if I had to do over again, I would take those off and replace, use those 2 points and put something on this fleet that would actually benefit me more than that. So I left it in this video because that's a mistake that I made, and I thought it was worth calling out, especially if there are other new players here that might be tempted or might be about to make that same mistake. The generic Riemann Warbird uses Torith as a captain, and she converts a hit to a crit. Really useful ability, captain skill of 7. Not much to say there other than works really well on this ship, and you will have plenty of hits to be converting to crits, so that's a darn nice ability. Interface generator and Romulan helmsman we've already talked about. Same tech as what you saw over there on the Scimitar. So again, the charging weapons is kind of wasted points at this point in time in this fleet. But anyway, that's the breakdown of the ships. Let's do a quick demo dice roll so we can see how that actually plays out in an attack. Six dice, primary attack, plus 1 dice for Denatra, within range 1. And we'll just say that this is a range 2, range 3 attack, so I don't get the extra for range 1. Let's roll them. Okay, I have 2 hits and 3 crits. That's a really good roll. I wouldn't say that's the average, but I will say I average with this attack roll. On a 7 dice attack, you're going to average 4 hits of some type, whether they are crits or regular hits. You're going to average 4 on a roll. So that's 3 hits. Excuse me, 2 hits, 3 hits, 2 crits. Nope. 3 crits, 2 hits. There we go. I don't have battle stations, and then I have a blank, so I'm going to use my flagship ability to re-roll those 2 dice. Pretty darn good. So I just threw an attack at my opponent that's 4 hits and 3 crits. And there's no battle stations modifying this. There's none of that stuff. And by the way, if this is the Riemann Warbird with Torith, I convert a hit to a crit. So now I'm throwing 4 crits and 3 hits at my opponent. That's a better than average roll, but generally speaking, you're going to come out of there with 6 hits on most of these rolls, and that's tough for most ships to deal with. That's really tough. So let's do another one just to test it out again. Again, we'll do a 6 dice primary weapon plus 1 for range 1 of Denatra and see how it rolls out. Okay, that's a more average roll, probably a little below average. If I had battle stations, it'd be great, but I don't. So let's see what it looks like. So that's 2 hits and a crit and 4 battle stations. So we do get our flagship rerolls. Let's reroll that and see what it looks like. There you go. Even a below average initial roll with the flagship reroll comes back out, and we end up with 5 hits and a crit and 1 blank. So out of our 7 dice attack, 7 damaging hits going across. And I'm telling you, you see this, it's time after time after time with these warbirds attacking. With the combination of Denatra giving him an extra dice and the flagship giving him the rerolls, it's incredibly consistent, even without battle stations, and it just absolutely devastates my opponents. It's been a fantastic combination and one that's a ton of fun to play and pretty freaking miserable to play against, so I'm told. Let's look at the formation real quick to show you how I actually fly this fleet. The formation I fly in is basically right here. You can see it. I use what I call a shallow V. I put the scimitar and the warbird out front. I put the scout vessel a little bit behind. I do it that way because I want to keep the scout vessel out of range if possible. I generally will slow roll this fleet up, so speed 1 maneuvers to get into range for combat, and hopefully that first round of combat, the scout vessel's not even within range to shoot or be shot, and the scimitar and the warbird can do their work. This also makes opponents more likely. There's a psychological impact of having those 2 ships out front. Opponents will more often than not target the scimitar and the warbird, not only because they're out front, but because they're a bigger threat. So that keeps the scout vessel from being shot at. It's a fragile ship, even with 8 defense dice. So keeping it from being shot at is pretty important for me. Generally speaking, by the time my opponents realize how much better it makes those 2 ships, it's too late. They're already dead, and they don't get the chance to kill it. So I've already, like I said, I've won the league for this. And I actually, very rarely, I've only lost one. I lost the Romulan warbird one time, or the Riemann warbird one time. In all 5 of my matches, I only lost 1, and I've only lost a scout vessel twice. So as fragile as it is, it's been hard for opponents to take off the table. So this fleet has performed really, really well. And for a faction pure Romulan fleet that's easy to fly and pumps out a ton of damage, for my money, it doesn't get any better than this. It's been a ton of fun and just a great fleet to fly. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Throw your comments below. If you want to go in more detail, let me know. If you want to see some demos, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Let me know what you guys want to see in the future. I'm a new player. I've only been in this for a couple months, but I've had a ton of fun, and I thought, you know what? There's not a lot of fresh attack wing content coming out on YouTube, so I thought it might be fun to throw some out there. Let me know what you guys think. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.